When I think of the mortgage coach community and I think of the mortgage coach loan officer, I think they are the best loan officers in America, and we want to help you guys get better. Today, as my guest, I have Mr. Scott Nicholson. What's up, Scott?
How you doing? Good morning.
Good, man. It's good to have you, brother. I'm looking forward to an exciting interview. I know you've got a lot to share, and you're excited about it.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be a barn burner, so I'm excited too.
All right, guys. So please ask as many questions as you want, whether you're watching this in our Facebook community in live. Ask questions below. If you're in Zoom, feel free to ask questions there. And if you're watching the recording, it's not too late. Scott and I will stay tuned in. So Scott, before we get into the interview, I want to just go through the Mortgage Coach Facebook group real quick. There's some things I want to shine a light on. Obviously, you know, Scott is here. This is the promotion of that. We are going to be talking about how to get more leads from realtors and how to get more referrals powered by the seller buy-down strategy. However, I do want to also shine a light on the Mortgage Coach social survey integration is out. If you don't know what that is, check out this video. Tune in to our channels. We'll be talking a lot about it over the next 30 days. And if you work for a lender that has social survey and mortgage coach, just email socialsurvey@mortgagecoach.com. Get after it. And if you don't have either mortgage coach or social survey, still email us and we'll get you started. Also at the top of our thread, Scott, this is a flashback from last year. You remember this?
Oh yeah, that's good there.
So by the way, when did you do your last realtor sales meeting? You know, it looks something like this.
I did a smaller version actually last Thursday.
Last Thursday?
Yep.
Well, I have this up because if you're on this call and you have been talking about the seller buy down with realtors, comment below. Even share a link to one of your seller buy downs. We're trying to create a conversation around that. Also, I didn't get to be on Friday's call when we announced Bliss Sawyer as the winner of our April game. But Bliss, if you're watching this, thank you for being an amazing leader in our community. Guys, think about it. She called 875 prospecting calls last month, and she made 82 total cost analysis. I will be interviewing Bliss next Wednesday, so stay tuned. We'll be putting that in the Mortgage Coach community into our YouTube channel, and she's going to share what did she learn. You know, that was more activity than she typically does. What did she learn? And what results did she get? So if you're interested in how Bliss did from that, I'll be interviewing her next Wednesday. If you have a question for Bliss, put it in comments below. And then the last thing I wanted to shine a light on was Jeremy last week, he posted that he closed the month at 32 closed loans. And he said, you could do it too. That post got 330 likes and over 100 comments. So for all of you that are tuned into the community and you got inspiration from that, great job. And for all of you that liked it and commented, thank you for being active in our community. If you haven't listened to this 6-7 minute interview I did with Jeremy, check it out. It's in our Facebook group. It's pinned at the top. Check it out. So I'm gonna stop going through the group. Scott, you know, you made the cut of one of the top 4 strategies that we believe at Mortgage Coach loan officers should be masters of. Just going through the list of strategies. Number 1, purchase options. You need to know how to deliver a pre-qual on a purchase in a way that's a competitive advantage. And you need to use a total cost analysis to do that. That is critical. The other 2 were rent versus own and cost of waiting. You know, you need to be able to create urgency and clarity for a first-time home buyer. And you need to be able to create clarity and urgency for a move-up buyer. So both of those, but we believe, and I don't want to call it the 4th most important, but we believe still in this market, the seller buy down is something that every top mortgage coach should be able to have that conversation at a level of excellence. So why don't we just start off with you making the case for that, and then I know you've got some slides, and we'll go through your presentation.
Yeah, no, I'm super excited because I spent some time to help here to really dive deep into this to really get people to understand. There's some adapters out there. There's people are kind of like, well, how does this really work and how can it apply to my area?
So why don't you, I don't know if you want to share your slides.
Sorry.
Walk us through.
Let me pull that up.
Yeah, and then folks, keep in mind, Scott is closing 6 to 8 loans a month that are either reno or seller buy down or renovation loans, or he used the seller buy down as a strategic component. So here's my thought. I believe every single mortgage coach professional is losing at least 1 loan a month, if not 2, 3, maybe 5 loans a month. And for you mega producers out there that have huge databases of realtors, you are losing loans every month because you're not having this conversation. So Scott, I'll let you know when the presentation is in presentation mode, but we do see your slides.
Okay, yep. So I'll just go ahead and, okay, you see that?
Boom. Changing the narrative. Love it.
So, yeah, I think this is really important. I think, this is common ground that I think a lot of us believe, and that narrative is being altered out there in many different ways. So I think this was an important kind of title heading. And I think, and I put this visual up here because I think if we were to look in all of our minds, it may be on the front of all of us, but it's the full time on the back of our minds. This is our thought processes, is this is coming, this is happening. And then with that is knowing that these are coming into the game and they're already here and they're changing in 6 months to 12 to 8 and so on. It's really going to keep altering. I think this is really important to ask yourself, what's the game plan? And think of it this way. If you're not thinking about them, you need to start thinking about them. Number 2, if you don't have a game plan, you need to have a game plan, because think of this. These companies altered the employees of the companies they replaced, right? Those employees didn't have a chance, or those companies did not make the game plan. So they've altered the way business is done.
Hey, Scott, real quick.
Yeah.
So guys, and I know this because I've interviewed Scott so many times and we did a little bit of prep for today's call. The slides that he's showing to you right now are the same slides he uses in realtor meetings. So when he's making the case for, real estate agents to, seller buy down is valuable, I want you to know about it and I want you to know why it's valuable. These slides are how he sets up the conversation. So he just did this speaking to you as a mortgage audience,
right.
But think about, he's also giving you guys a tool, a presentation that at your next realtor meeting, start with, hey, let's change the narrative. And let's face it, realtors are getting disrupted. Are they more concerned about it than we are? Between iBuyers and Zillow, they're freaking out. And so when you come with this message, it's powerful. So keep going. I just wanted people to be listening with that duality. Hey, this is a presentation to you as a mortgage pro, but this is a presentation you could use at your next realtor meeting.
Right. Great point. So all I really did was exact same slides. I just changed it here from, instead of commissions, it's rates and fees applicable to us. So think of, we're getting attacked now. So those tech companies are disrupting the narrative. And now the consumer is now looking at us going, what's rates and fees? I think this comment right here from this particular person from this company is huge. And it's, the only thing you can't automate is advice. It's important to have expert alongside of you. So he's saying, my company is going to disrupt, but it's still very important to have that expert advice. So I think moving forward, we have to make a decision, and we got to give that expert advice and pivot off the rates and fees games. Hey, I got the lowest rates, lowest margins. That's really going to put you and your bank out of business. So I think we all believe that expert advice is where we want to go. But I think my question is, and before I get into the slide, is what are you going to do about it? What are you an expert at? What's your claim? So this is something that I actually changed my presentation last night because this came in last night. So this is really important what just happened here. So this is my agent, a text I got last night at 5 o'clock. He basically said, hey, can you work that buy down model for this home? He's saying, hey, I have a client that's pre-approved with another bank to 750, but he wants a payment at 650. Property's been on, he actually tagged the property here. Property's been on 100 days, it's sitting, we need some issues, so on it. So I immediately moved into Mortgage Coach, brought the presentation up, figured it out without going into great detail, but look at my screen here. So what I did was a seller buy down presentation and look at two things. Number one, look at the far left. Here's what he's pre-approved, 750. Look at the far right. I got it all the way down to 654, 395. I solved that client's need for my agent to within $4,400 in payment. That's a huge deal in this market, and it dovetails exactly what I'm going to teach you here.
So Scott, before you move off of this, if you could move back to that. So guys, this is a lead. This is a realtor that wasn't like, oh, I have a loan that's going to escrow. I have a borrower that needs to be approved. Because he has showed up and said, hey, I'm a seller buy down expert. Let me explain what that is. And when you have a seller that needs help selling their home or a buyer that needs help getting more lifestyle than payment, I'm your expert. So he had built that reputation, and now he's getting an incremental lead that he probably would not have otherwise gotten. I also want all of you guys to think in mortgage coach land is maybe this is a strategy for all those realtors where you're in the number 2 or number 3 spot. Meet with that agent, and here's another way I can help you. And by the way, does the loan officer you currently work with, are they an expert at the seller buy down? Are they able to do, and you'll see everything Scott's going to go through, but I just want you guys to connect the dot. This is a lead, it's incremental, and this is a conversation that you could take to all your agents tomorrow, and keep it going, brother.
One of the things here too, you wanted me to provide the link, so I forwarded that too. So you can put that in the group so you can actually see the video, the actual details of everything in there. How it's
Scott, which one is that? Because you sent me 3 links with
that's gonna be your Rodeo link.
Okay, the Rodeo link. So I'm gonna put in the Rodeo link, and then in comments below. If you're on this call and you have done a seller buy down and you have a link that you could share, whether you're listening to the recording or it's live, I'd love for the community to share it below. But I'm forwarding it right now, Scott.
Yeah. And then just let me know if you have questions. I'll take a peek later if to the chat or dialogue. So I think what our ultimate goal is to become that local expert, so I can get texts like that from my agents, so I can have solutions prepared for them and have dialogue and figure it out. So that's going to lead me to, well, how do I do that? How do I become the expert? And I'm going to pitch one pillar to you in the buy down. And obviously, I spent a long time doing this in different markets, and I'm going to explain why this and why now. So I think it's important because this screen's really important because this is the busyness, this is the disruption going on, and there's really 2 things I see in this slide. I see the tech companies coming in and disrupting and commoditizing and putting fear from not only our agents, but for us as lenders. But there's a second thing I'm going to show you is there's some market changes going on, and I'm going to point those out that set up this. So the first thing we're talking about is supply and demand. So I put this graph up for a reason. I want to make a point. So this is the housing supply for the last 20 years. So think if I drew a line and think of where we're at on the far right, 2019, look at our supply. We're now touching 2010 and 2007. So supply is going up. Why is this important? Because the seller buy down is not a rate driven strategy. It's a supply driven strategy. And as sellers start to move and the buyers are in control or have equal footing, we now start to get to negotiate. So let's put a visual to that. What that means is here's 3 different levels. The bottom here, there's your low end market. Lots of buyers, very few properties. That's just get in line, try to get your best foot in there in different strategies for that. Middle one is starting to level out. And I'm starting to see about maximum county limits, about 5 to 10% over that is where it starts to get wobbly. And then the top end is really wobbly. So think of as we move up in price starts to, let me put this in real perspective. I pulled this, preparing here, I pulled up kind of the 4 corners in the middle of the United States here. So I zipped around to Seattle. Look what's going on here. We're doing massive price cuts in Florida and Chicago and San Diego and Bismarck, North Dakota, and in Jersey. And notice the different price points here. So this is caused by supply and demand, right? Not where rates are at. Rates are great. So think of this. And so knowing where our market is, what I'm going to teach you today in Seller Buydown, I want you to walk away from this call with 4 details to walk away for your business. So number 1, I'm going to help you target new agents. Number 2, I want you to take this to re-engage with your agents. Number 3, we're going to use this to get into the advice mode like I showed you in the text last night versus what's our rates and fees. And then lastly, here's kind of the secret here that I want to make you the digital local expert. So first, let's do this. So bear with me, all the Seller Buydown gurus here, but there's a lot of. Go ahead.
So we've been talking a lot about, be the digital mayor of your city, your local market. And I just want to make sure I'm clear. So you're gonna show everybody how to do the TC, how to do the Seller Buydown efficiently and effectively. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to show them how to promote it and educate it online so that it becomes, a lead generation strategy. Is that what we're talking about?
That's correct.
Got it. And that's what you've done, right? You've not only, had this conversation with agents, but you created this online presence and this online website that's helping you, 1, support your agent strategy, and 2, get leads directly from the marketplace that you can then bring back to your agents. Is that accurate?
Well, yeah. And I think, there's 2 things going on there. Number 1, helping that actual agent, move that property as it starts to wobble a little bit. But number 2 is to get the education into the consumer's hand directly. So I don't want any biased opinions from an agent that maybe is like, whatever. But getting in the direct consumer, so like, yeah, because I want to know it because I'm writing the check every month. Yeah, I want to know it, Scott, because it's my house on the market and I don't want to have these price cuts for whatever reason to move my property. So it's in thinking. So I've pivoted into both directions now, and I'll talk about that in a minute.
So the online, I just want to make sure I'm connecting the dots. So the online website that you have and the way you use the total cost analysis is 1, lead gen, incremental lead, and 2, it's an educational resource so that the buyer has access or the seller has access, and you're controlling the education of them, and you're not relying to, you're using it to help you with the realtor and the consumer, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And, sometimes look how Brad, that buy down model he put in his text, that was, so sometimes they don't get it. So yeah, absolutely. So we'll get into that in a second.
Let's see it. Let's rock.
So here is, here's those who don't understand what this is. And I just put a very simple sentence together, or a process here. So it's a process where the seller provides a concession to a buyer so that the buyer can purchase discount points in order to obtain a rate that would be below market for them based on their qualifications. That's it. That's what the seller buy down is. And I think this ratio is really important for those who are trying to grasp what it is, right, on the call, but also agents. This I have all the time. This is kind of something I came up with, the 3-to-1 ratio. And what it means, and I say this to all of my agents, for every $3 in price, I can have the same benefit as $1 in rate. So a lot of times I'm telling agents, why are we dropping price by $3 if it's priced right to sell the property when you can give me $1 in the buy down and I get the same financial impact? And then when they go, oh, wait a second, how does that work? Well, great. That's when I go to the TCA, go to the seller buy down, I start education mode. So it's setting myself up to be that educator again. So let's do this. This was a reminder to pop out, and I'm going to show you some TCAs, what that looks like now visual to some people.
So another dot I want to connect for everybody watching it, go ahead and start sharing your desktop, Scott. I'll tell you when I see it, is every time you're presenting to a group of realtors, and I'm not saying every time there should be slides, but if you have the time and the opportunity to have a few slides to set up your problem, you should do it. But every time you should walk them through an actual total cost analysis where you pull up the total cost analysis on screen. If it's a one-on-one conversation, you pull it up on your iPad or your mobile phone, and you use it as an educational tool. And then what's important about that is then from a call to action standpoint, you're able to tell them a story, explain a strategy, and then you're able to say, and if you'd like me to do one of these for that home or for that buyer, it's tangible. It's not a slide, it's not a picture, it's not something that you've talked about vaguely, it's something that you've walked them through. And so from a call to action standpoint, it's important that you are walking through the actual total cost analysis. So Scott, we see your screen. Tell us what we're looking at.
Here's the Rodeo. Let's just keep it current to what we're talking about. So here's the property from last night. So here's the Rodeo property with Brad. So I'll go into Mortgage Coach. I'll click on, I'll just put whatever reminder. So I put Rodeo, which is going to show in there, and I move through it. I'll go into product. I'll load in my product. So this is what he was pre-approved at. So I'm going to load all that in. Actually, here, I'm going to load it in here. So 750, there was my rate. I actually had to figure out his FICO. So I got that data to make sure we're comparing an apple and an apple here. And then once I build the presentation out, then I'm going to go ahead and now select which one I want. And I'm kind of going a little bit fast just for display purposes. I'm going to select the seller buy down report. I'm going to input the amount of the credit. I determine the credit based on, I'll pivot to my rates. Okay, great. To get it down to this, I'm going to need this much. So I start to load it in. This is huge because back in 7, 8, 9, I was all manually doing this. This took 30 minutes for me to do each presentation for my clients and agents. So now they made it simple. So we just input the credit we need, what the points were, the rate change, off it goes. And then I just keep clicking through it. I can change the title presentation. I was quick on this one. And then out, I have a finished product for Brad. So let me pull that up. Let me go select report. I want the seller buy down. And let's take a peek at it. And then I would then bring up my machine, turn on my video, start the recording, but I'll show you a finished product here. Here we go. So what I showed him here quickly is I showed him at 750, like I showed you in the slides prior. I showed him this is what he's at. This is what a price drop, this is what a buy down, but ultimately what he wanted was this column. He wanted get me the closest to 650 in payment. So which I achieved. I got within $4,400. So out this goes, hyperlink, shot it to Brad. You know what and here's what you were talking about a little bit, is I then backed it up. This is kind of jumping ahead a little bit. I then took this link. I took the seller buy down report, put this link and go, Brad, here you go, present it, because what I have here is social proof. I have social proof. I am an expert at what I'm doing. I'm not some guy just saying, here you're approved at 650, off you go. So I made that, I forwarded both of the links to him last night and loved it. So there you go.
So first of all, I know about your website, and obviously I've talked to you a few times about it, but that's pretty next level. Would you go back to that website? So I just want to make sure I'm connected to that. So you're sending the TCA, and then you're also sending this sellerbuydown.com website.
So yeah, I have, so this is kind of going to the next level. So I want to get to the digital masses, right? So I go, all right, I have the wherewithal to figure this out, build it. So I built a website here that's going to showcase me to cross as many people as I possibly can. I am the local expert in this case in Yorba Linda, for an example. So I grabbed all the stuff. They can come in here, look at reviews, look at all my case studies, look at everything in there. They want to go, hey, I want more information. How do I get it? There's that lead gen we spoke about. So this link went out there because here's the deal. Here's what you could run into. I could run into a Dave Savage loan officer that gets this concept, right? And all of a sudden, hey, I got it too. But you know what? I like this guy. This guy's got the assets to back the credibility here. I think that's why I wanted to build it and send it last night in that case.
Got it. All right. So for those of you that just, I got a text and a chat. Yes, we'll give you a link to the website. I'll put it in here before. For you who asked about Scott's PowerPoint or Keynote, however you're doing this, Scott, we'll tell you guys how to get it at the end, or we'll give you a link in chat, whatever. Okay, so that's pretty slick. One question, Scott, when you were going through that total cost analysis,
Yep.
how often do you use the live feature where you forward the link and then the client follows along? Is that a feature you use much?
No, I use it a lot. And the reason why, because a lot of times I only get one half of the family on board during the initial consultation, right? It's either on the phone, I'm speaking to the wife, right? Husband's at work, or vice versa, right? So what happens is I'll do all the homework, put it out, get the video, I'll get them on. Then they said, hey, can you call us at 7:30 to put it all together? I'll say, great, pull the presentation up. And then what they do on their side of the fence, they pull it up on their computer. Now I can physically go in and start playing around. So if you had my Rodeo open right now, you would see me changing and moving through. I can go and change the numbers, all the good stuff.
Time out, guys. So did you hear that? Like, if you clicked on Scott's sample, you'll have that on one screen or on your mobile phone. You can see it move. Hey, real quick, I've got Jacob Gibbs on today's call. For those of you who don't know Jacob, if you've listened to a how-to video in Mortgage Coach, it's likely to be Jacob. And he, leads our support and product team. Jacob, any comments you have, any advice you have just seeing this particular TCA?
Oh, I love the strategies. I had the opportunity to look at these TCAs ahead of the call. So I got to see that Scott actually has this really cool way of being able to change the alignment of the proposal based on his borrower's needs. So you'll see in some proposals, the concept is really geared towards, okay, you wanted it at a certain price. Let me make sure that you can still afford it at a different price, but get the same property. So it could be the focus on price. And then there's other ones where the focus is on payment. Well, I wanted this payment flat. That's it. And I'm not willing to budge on it. All right, well, let's work on something with the rate buy down so that we can get your payment to where you wanted it to be. So two totally divergent concepts, but the exact same strategy. It's really important that I want to make sure everybody realizes what he's doing there. And then, of course, there's just the standard strategy, which is, hey, why would you take a price reduction when you can get a 3-to-1 payback on a rate reduction? And then it's just, hey, is your engineering mind working on this one? Because if it is, you see that this is right. So, I mean, I really don't have any feedback for improvement, Scott. I love what you're doing here. I think it's a great set of methods that you overcome. And for those of you looking for objection handling, this is the key component right here. So pay attention. Scott's the master of this stuff.
So here's the deal, guys. I mean, I've interviewed countless, thousands of the best, and they all have something in common. They teach borrowers and realtors something that they didn't already know, or they make something more clear that wasn't clear. And that's why I love this seller buy down. If you're a local referral-based loan officer and you saw that, Zillow, other referral-based loan officers, I mean, competition is getting thick. Be a master at this strategy, because even though a realtor might even know the name, they don't know all the creative ways of doing it. So this really helps you as a mortgage professional always have something in your back pocket that can teach a realtor, teach a seller, teach a buyer to use their mortgage more strategically. This buy down is essential learning for the mortgage coach community. And then, Scott, I just posted a link to your video in the group. And another thing I really like about it is how it's like you have this link, a TCA link that's your advice, right, your personalized advice experience. And then you have your website, which is really branding you as seller buy down badass. Right. I am the seller buy down expert in this local market. So anyways, I don't know how intentional that was on your part, but when I put the link in, I was just like, ooh, this is powerful. And I could see how this would be powerful online, so yep. Guys, keep the questions coming. If you have more questions, post down below. And Scott, keep it rocking. We're about halfway through the call.
Okay, so while we're here, I'm going to keep this open because Jacob made a great point here. So let me show you the same strategy but presented different. This is actual property that went into escrow. Agent called me, Allie needed help. It was the clock was ticking. Sellers wanted to do something. She called, I need help. Property's not moving. We've approved 5,000. So what I did in this presentation, I went ahead and did a total cost analysis and gave the option to this client that was ready to go. I gave him 3 options for 5,000 in concession. So I let them make the choice. And then what I did was I showed them next door in these graphs, and I'll go over in just a second, what those ramifications for each choice was. So for an example, first column, this is a 345 sales price VA. Second column, choice number 1. Do you want to take the 5,000 off price? Great. Here's the benefits. You save $29. Choice number 2, column number 3. Take the 5,000 in a seller buy down. Here's what we did to rate. Here's what we did to savings, 101. Choice number 3 and final option here, take the 5,000 off closing costs, right? So where do you want to put it? So I showed them all that. Then I slid next door in the savings over 60 months and 10 years and I'm showing them what, if for an example, if closing costs weren't an issue, do I take it off price or do I take it off rate? Well, look at rate. I've highlighted in yellow. There's $5K in a seller buy down. That savings in 60 months is $9,300. The $5,000 on price, that savings was $1,349. And look at the principal paid on a VA loan off $5,000 in price. You're going to have $75,000. If you take it on the seller buy down the $5,000, your principal paid is $91. I mean, it's like a no-brainer. And that's why I think it's critical to take the strategy. And like Jacob was saying, well, I'm going to deliver this in different ways, but also I'm going to deliver it so where the consumer can make choices, right? So what do you think they chose? We actually put it into a seller buy down.
So Scott, I want to make sure I got this right because I'm getting ready to share it in our group.
Oh yeah, and then I gave that to you.
Yeah, you gave this one to me. It's Ghostwriter. So we're showing the price reduction versus seller buy down for an active buyer to give them options. Is that right?
That is correct. For my agent, the listing agent, and the property. Correct. So
got it. And in this case, everybody wins. But this is really for the buyer. This was not the seller was going to give up this 5,000 either way. Yep. We're more helping a buyer's agent show up smarter and deliver another level of option to their buyer. Is that right? I mean, this is a buyer agent strategy.
Correct. This is absolutely buyer's agent. So where it is here, but what's funny is that's 100% correct, but you know me, but going up before this was a listing agent that was probably going to lose the transaction. And when she presented my video, there were 3 people in the room. She was there, the seller was there, and the neighbor was there. And guess who had the biggest comment? The neighbor. Are you kidding me? I love this because you're not going to fleece the equity in my neighborhood. And ultimately approved the 5,000. We got a buyer in there, and they ultimately selected the 5K for the seller buy down.
Love it. Again, be the expert. You notice what Scott's doing. The theme is incremental opportunities. You're all sitting on 1, 2, 3 loans a month. And for you mega producers out there, this might be a half a dozen extra loans. And you're positioning yourself as an expert and be a seller buy down expert in a local city you live in. You know, whatever the market is that you want to own, you want to be that digital mayor. This is just another pillar of business. Just like I want you to think of pillar of business, real estate agents, pillar of business, past customer, pillar of business, CPAs and financial planners, pillar of business, seller buy down strategy, a pillar of business. Right. If you master this, keep it going, brother.
Yep. Okay. So I'm going to slide back into the presentation.
Go for it.
Okay. So the first goal I was going to help you with. So now you understand the concept, how it's delivered, how I deliver it. Now I want to be going after agents. So new agents. And so I put the slide together and I started peeking around. I'm a licensed LO in Washington, California, and Nevada. So I have some room to move around. So this is one, and they're everywhere. Just look. And there's multiple price points. So this one caught my attention because there's a couple things. One, look at the price cut. Number two, if you believe the Zestimate, look at the Zestimate on the property. Three, look at the days on market. This property is struggling right now. And if you look at it, this is actually a really nice property. So what I would do, and I'm going to do, and I will give it to you, I'm going to prepare, I didn't have time to do this, I will give you what I call a post-reduction, right? Actually, this is a post-reduction. So they've already made their move. So I'm going to give you a seller buy-down report. We would produce it, get my link, go after that agent, sit down and say, guys, and this is what you're doing with the 66, the impact. Let me show you if it's still there and our next move is another one, let me help you have a more dramatic impact. If you're gonna go 66 again, let's use the 3-to-1 ratio. It'd be equivalent to what in price, guys? Here's a quiz for you. If the agent's gonna go another 66, it's like reducing it what? 180,000. So why would you do that? Let's go ahead and address the buyer's concern. So this is what you would do, and I'll give it to you later today. I'll put it in the group. So the next is this. This is another target for you. Again, this is new agents with the strategy. This is one that popped up in San Diego, for an example. I'm looking at, and they're everywhere. So look at the highlights here. Look at my price point. Look at this estimate if you believe it. But look at days on market. So I'm looking at price and days on market in particular. That's 72 days sitting there. So what do you think? This is pre-reduction. So I want to produce a report, right? I want to produce a report. I just pasted this one here for now, and I'll give you one and you can just take it, mentor it, script it, then you go into your own market. So I want to be able to say, agent, your first move is now a seller buy down. Don't do a price reduction because we have value. If you're trying to sell it to appease a buyer, don't do these price reductions here. And that's the ultimate, that's my why right there. I mean, we all own homes, right? Most of us. Why would an agent just go around and start ripping away at price? We want to help them because most of them don't understand financing. That's our jobs. That ties back to the big why of the Zillows don't know how to do this. The Amazons don't know how to do this. Take the time, guys, and learn this. So now I'm going to go ahead and deliver the report, set up my meeting, sit down. Here's what it could look like. This is all pre-reduction now, if that makes sense, and easy to find. So
Scott, so first of all, dig in your slides. We need to make sure we get this to everybody. And really clean. I love the way you're putting the total cost analysis and you're showing it on mobile, Knuckles. I mean, that's how families are doing life. They're not just searching for homes on mobile is old school. They're entertaining themselves searching for homes on mobile. So mortgage coach community, you need to be awesome at educating, telling stories, explaining strategies on mobile devices. And then this web presence you have, I've got 2 different members now that have asked about your website. So we do need to make sure they want to know how did you create your website? And guys, keep the questions coming. If you have more questions, whether you're in Zoom, whether you're in Facebook, put them down below. And I don't know how much more you have to share, but we need to make sure they know about the website.
Yeah, so the next point I was going to teach them is now the re-engagement of your current agents, right? So that's a big thing. Well, what do I do? How do I keep them, hey, the rates are going here, market updates, which are great. I love Dan and the Rate Watch. I watch that every single day, but that's good and valuable. We'll give them something to help them sell their house. So now go into the re-engagement appointments, and there's really 3 things to talk about. And I do this with my core agents. Lori, what's going on Monday? What's going on in the market? How did our open houses go? Any activity? How's the dialogue with your seller? So this would be current listings, right? And, God, we're struggling. What's going on? Is it priced right? So we'll figure out there. So now it opens dialogue. The second is, hey, any buyers in there maybe showed interest. but maybe they give you kind of a glimpse of maybe affordability. They, for whatever reason, how can we help appease and tie a buyer in there? And then also sellers, how much pressure are you getting here? Sellers, think of this. Can I create a report, make a one-page presentation, right, which I have, then I can embed that into my listing presentation for my agents, why they deserve it. So think about this. Let me slow down for a second. Sellers, your current agents, they need new business too. Why not make this a strategy in their listing presentation, why they deserve the opportunity versus an iBuyer transaction or a Zillow transaction? That's where you start to separate yourselves and change that narrative right there.
So guys, did you hear that? And tell me agents wouldn't love to have another competitive advantage added to their listing presentation that gave them another tool to win against iBuyers. And iBuyers are real. I mean, that is a thing that's going to trend. I've posted in our group about it, and it's an absolute threat to the referral-based local realtor. And if you can master this, if you can own this strategy, if you can become the digital mayor, that's like, okay, incremental loans, helping buyers, getting referrals. And now this is a whole nother reason why you need to master the seller buy down question. So if you're skeptical, post a question down below. If you're confused, post a question down below. We want to get those questions answered. Keep it going, Scott.
Yep. So think of now, I've checked two boxes for you. I gave you how to go after new agents. I just gave you how to re-engage with actual real value to your current data or your agent base. So now here's the thing. Now we got to be the expert in advice versus rate. That was the third thing I was going to teach you. And so that was the ghostwriter report. So when now I'm in a client, I'm in ghostwriter transaction, set up by my agent, set up by the seller, approved by the seller. How am I going to make myself different from them just going, nah, we'll just go to the VA, the preferred lender in the VA, right? But he's going to put what together? He's going to put that 4.25, here's your total payment, out the door it goes. So this is how I leveraged the buy down in this case, but how I presented it to a buyer. There is your definition, if you looked on it, a visual on site for a mortgage, how to give advice versus rate. Because your typical guy is just going to do your first column, here you go, like the guy last night with Brad and his buyer. So this is how you differentiate yourself. I won't go deep in this one, but this is a perfect, I put this up for this reason. This is going advice versus rate.
So guys, I just want to say, of all the slides I've seen in seller buy down land, of all the slides I've seen in the mortgage coach community, that's my favorite. I mean, I love the TCA, the family, expert advice versus rate. So Scott Nicholson, you are the winner on most bitch and PowerPoint so far, or keynote.
All right. So now I've given you now 3. So now here's the big one. Here's kind of taking it to a whole nother level. This was built on some background. This was built on my fear. Sometimes I'm fearful for teaching you guys, right? Sometimes I need help, right? As a lender, I can't be the only few guys running around the neighborhood of saying, that guy's a quack. What is that guy talking about? So it's a movement. It's a movement. You go to any realtor chat room, and I started one in lab coats the other day. I need to finish, but getting type of feedback and what their thought process is if their property's not selling, what is their next move? And so this is where I need to take it to another level. This is where I need to take it to the consumer. I need to create, a friend of mine taught me this, a coach, I need social proof. I can't sell myself. Someone else can sell me better. So think of what I'm going to show you here in just a second. I've taken the 3 things I need. I want to become the local expert. I want to take my pillar of my seller buy down, and I want to take it online. I need those 3 things. How do I do it? Well, I've created this. So I created sellerbuydown.com. It is a large community of lenders, a network of lenders that can display their assets, intellectual capital to not only like how I used it to Brad, but how we can take it into the masses and the direct consumer. So I have a personal page in there. So now my consumer can go right into my page. They can interact with me. They can look at all my videos, my case studies, my referrals. They can find me per state. They can find me they can click on how does it work for a buyer. This was developed and pointed directly for buyers. I had to point it to someone. I had this built specifically for a buyer. So one of the things that we can do, and this is kind of lining up to Dave, well, how does this benefit me? Why are you showing me this? So I need a mass. I need to change the mindset of how real estate's. I also need us to get away from the Amazons of the world. So what I'm going to do is offer you an opportunity to come into the site and be a member in your area and own your own Yorba Linda, own your own Topeka, Kansas, own your own Austin, Texas, and be that digital mayor. Take the seller buy down to not only your agents, create social proof, create the content and the education needed, and take it to the masses.
Sweet. Well, I knew that was coming. I mean, Scott, you mentioned this to me. I think it was like, I don't know if it was 3 months ago or 6 months ago.
It was pre-holiday.
You had this vision, and I love it. I mean, it's good for Mortgage Coach. It's, the more our concepts that leverage the total cost analysis, it gives you a unique competitive advantage, the better. So I'm stoked that you did this. By the way, guys, I know this because Scott reached out to me, and it was, hey, I'm building this, but it's costing me a lot. And do you think there would be anybody else in our community that would want it? And I said, probably. And so I know you're also just doing this just so you can really fund the ultimate online website to build a personal brand for that. So I don't want to turn this into a Ginsu knife pitch. I want to keep this interview. If you guys do have questions, let us know. But I already got a question, like what are you looking to charge people for it? And what is the deal? Just so we at least get that off the table.
Yeah. So think of it this way. And so so here it's really simple. It's actually, So actually it's 500. I apologize. So 500. So 500 monthly, 500 for the setup, and then Dave, the power of Mr. Savage. Dave's going to give it to you guys. I'm going to give it to Dave to offer you guys. So for the first week, we'll give it to you at 300 and 300 sign up. So think of what you got here. 300 for the Mortgage Coach member. I'll give you 200 off, and I'll get you down to the setup for 300. That's your first week. Today, there's your kind of Ginsu. I feel kind of cheesy, but 300, and the first 50 will waive the setup fee. So think about the first 50, 300. And then the first week, 300. After that, it's 5. So pretty simple. And then.
Cool. Oh, go ahead, Scott.
Yeah. And then questions, and that's fine. So my last box I wanted to check was, how do I take this to the masses? Because one of my greatest fears, and Jeremy said it too, I think you said in your interview, what drives them every month is fear. The fear of, production going down, the fear of losing your place. And that's exactly what I fear. I don't want some big Amazon to say, oh man, this kid's on it. We need to figure that out and really commoditize that. So I did this out of fear, knowing how much tech is coming in here, but also too, we have a background in this. And so it took a while. And so a background in this really helps to get me out into the masses. So my last checkbox, I just checked off. I just became the digital mayor of my city.
For sellerbuydowstrategy.com. So Scott, two things. One, if you could put a link down below. Mm-hmm. So you don't do it live, but let's give everybody a link to sign up. I'm an advocate of anything you do. I believe that it's going to be exceptional. And you sent me a link last night. I looked around the website and it looks super slick. And I don't think anyone who's not a mortgage coach would do this, because thank you for putting the TCA throughout it. So guys, another thing that I think is cool about this is Scott has built in telling stories, explaining strategies with the total cost analysis. So good job on that.
Yep.
That definitely makes me, a supporter of this strategy.
Mm-hmm.
And looking forward to you building this kind of community within a community. And guys, check it out. I don't want to turn this into a sales call, so let's get on to a
Yep.
TCA. Like, I'd love for you to pull up another total cost analysis.
Yep.
And then also, Jacob, real quick, you hear questions all the time about the seller buy down. I want to make sure that anybody who's just, how to create a TCA and mortgage coach, what are some of the biggest questions you hear, Jacob? And I just want to make sure we get those covered we got 10 minutes left before we wrap this up. Anything that we should cover, that Scott should cover?
Well, I think a couple of them, the most common ones we get are people wanting a further explanation on the fourth column of the seller buy down. So just understanding the price versus rate type of conversation.
Right.
And then the other one is generally understanding the benefit across the board. So we all know that this helps the buyer, but what are the real benefits for the realtor partner? What are the benefits for the neighbors in terms of keeping a comp up? What are the benefits for everybody that's part of the transaction? Because there really is no negative on any side of it. So I guess I would just ask Scott, how do you position the benefits across the board?
And time out, Scott, I want to throw one more question, and I'm going to let Jacob interview you. I want at some point, because a lot of people think, oh, the seller buy down's really good when rates are going up. But I know you also have a conversation on, no, it's all about supply and demand. Right. So I'm going to have you answer that. Now, before you answer those, I do see you have a slide here. It says goals for today. I do want to get to cover that before we get pulled into TCA Q&A.
Yep. So think about what I gave you. So potentially you can take this as a pillar, use this as targeting new agents, use this to re-engage your current agents, become the advice expert in that space. And then lastly, kind of my personal touch for you guys is become the digital mayor in your community online to do battle against those, those bigger entities. Because face it, and that was driven off my fear. If I'm sitting here, the old fashioned boots on the ground, I can't get to enough people, right? I need to get out in space where the eyeballs are. I need to get online. And that's what was driven why I did this. I did it by fear of how much is coming in. So that's it. Yeah. So you have all of these.
And let's face it, other referral-based local loan officers that are leveraging tech and media, you need to do it. And so I love it, Scott. I support this. So let's answer Jacob's questions. And guys, if you have more questions, put them down below.
So great question. So let's look at, let's see, Jacob wanted to see the price. Okay, so let's use Rodeo for an example. So let me I'll show you, I'll keep it real simple here.
Hey, blow it up so it's full screen mode on your computer, just so we can really see it. And I want you guys to get clear on this.
Hey, Scott. Yeah, there you go. I was going to ask you to do Control Plus there. That's perfect.
Yep. So think of what I got here. So I'm in first column. So this is what he's at. He's at 750 with a payment of 38.96, right? So I went to rate sheet, figure out how much I needed to implement this particular one. And they vary. They could be small. I showed you Ghostwriter, smaller price property for 5,000, had a big impact, right? So this one, I used 34. This property's been sitting around. It's 100 days plus doing nothing. So think of, before I move on and answer Jacob, and I'll answer the second question right now. What is the seller's next move? It goes to the slide of the agent, right? This is pre-reduction. 750 and sitting there for 100 days. How long are you going to sit there? Are you going to wait it out for a couple of years at that price point? The markets could be gone by then. So their next move, I guarantee you, is a price reduction. How much? That's my job to come in and say, if we do it 34, right? I'm in the third column here. So I built the seller buy down, 750, give it a fair appraised value, because remember, it's on the market for 799, this particular property. So we're going to give it to 750, ask for the 34. Look what I'm doing to payment. Now I've reduced it to 3508 and 387. Here's to answer Jacob's question, whoever asked for the fourth column. And what the fourth column was built for was to put the perspective in the potential buyer and or the agent, you would have to reduce 95,000 to 654, 395 to have the same financial benefits there. There's that 3-to-1 ratio. I did this same 3508 payment with 35,000. You would have to drop it 95,000, and that's the point of the buy down. It gets to the heart of the problem. It's affordability, right? So why would an agent go in there, and I showed you the Zillow slides, why are they going in there and just dramatically starting to just cut the legs out underneath this property just to get it sold? And my opinion on that, sorry, I don't mean to get on my soapbox, I think it's poor sales skills from the real estate agent, to be honest with you. Just get her done. And so this is why this fourth column's huge. I always refer to this. This is what I sent to Brad last night. I've achieved your buyer's, quote, 3508 payment at a 650 price point, but we did this. Now let me go into detail on the second question you asked. Why would a seller do this? Well, think about it. If the property is free and clear in column 3, they owe 0, and we took 34 away from that, do you think they would be happy netting 710 or 715? Hell yeah. Because what's their alternative? To keep letting it go, you could get all the way down to the 650s. You could get into the 6s, high 6s. In this case, you could eventually get into the 650 mode, right? So it helps the seller net more, helps the agent present it, helps me present it to the consumer and buy right. And then you can go a whole next level on this stuff and then reinvest the 387 if you wanted to.
So Scott, you killed that. Jacob, anything we need to add to that? I do have another question, but any quick, Jacob?
I have one more question for Scott real quick, because I just thought of another one that people have asked me a lot. And that is, do you always use the equivalent value for the point buy down and the rate reduction, or do you sometimes vary it? So you'll show a larger amount for the reduction, maybe a smaller amount for the buy down?
Yeah, good question. So in the seller buy down, I don't. I only show the price drop is what I need. So the second column, so that's a great question. I see this mistake is in the seller buy down report, I put the amount of what I need to buy the rate down as the price drop. And then that carries over to column 3. In the TCA report, it has the 4 columns. So now I can individually, I would show column 1, this is what you would look like standard. Column 2, this would be me talking to an agent now, listing agent. Column 2, if you're going to hit them with $60,000 or $70,000 price drop to your seller, here's what you did with that. But I can do it instead of $70,000, I can drop it, let's say 19 or 20, let's say 25,000, right? And have the same financial impact. That's me in a TCA comparing a $70,000 price drop to a $25,000. I'm just using those numbers. And the TCA is a better way to show that, not in the seller buy down report.
Okay, guys, we got 3 minutes. So one, for those of you that are still confused about it, the Mortgage Coach training team will put a few links to what we think are some of the most on-point training videos. And then on our Thursday Q&A, every Thursday, 9 o'clock, think of it as the Mortgage Coach Genius Bar. We are there to answer your questions, and I will prep the team that there may be a lot of seller buy-down questions this Thursday, and maybe we could even get Scott to do a cameo and be on that call. Thursday at 9, seller buy-down, links down below with training. Now, Scott, John just said, hey, how do I sign up? I went to your website and I couldn't figure it out.
Yep.
Walk us through that real quick.
Super easy. So go to sellerbuyer.com, right? See in the upper right, join the network, click on that.
I got it. He's probably going to your website.
Oh yeah.
So go to sellerbuydown.com. And Scott, if you just post a link to that after the call.
Yep.
And dude, thanks for all the value. I'm super pumped. I hope you're really successful with this platform. So the last question, hey, rates are down right now. Seller buy downs just for when it's high rates. How do you respond to that?
Go to Zillow. Go to Zillow. Punch in wherever you want to go. Go into 90 days, 6 months on the market. Go to wherever you want to go and look at properties, right, that are sitting days on market. Go to properties that have these massive price reductions. They're everywhere.
Okay,
right?
so time out. You're using the filter 90 days. So you're going to Zillow and you're filtering it by 90 days, and then you're like, those are all seller buy down houses. So I mean,
They're
the
100%.
answer, if there is if there's like 7 listings on every house and there's no houses on the market that have been on the market for 90 days, it's not a seller buy down market.
Right.
But if there's a lot of homes that have been on the market for 90 days or more, it's a seller buy down market, regardless of how low rates are, because you're always, the buy down's getting a lower rate. So
Right.
guys,
Yeah.
so it's a
Supply and demand.
Makes sense. And I have a feeling, just looking at the questions, we're going to want to do another call on this.
Yeah.
Scott, you get the last minute. Let's stop sharing your screen.
Yeah.
Let's just face to face. What advice do you have to the mortgage coach community as the seller buy down king? You're definitely the digital mayor of the city you are in, but what advice do you have for mortgage coach loan officers as we wrap up today's call?
Yeah, I think you really need to stop for a second and really ask yourself, what is my plan moving forward? You can bury your head, not really have a plan, and just be reactive in your business day to day, or stop for a second and be reflective. And I need to get out there. I need to be that expert. I don't care what it is. If you don't like the seller buy down, that's fine. But be the expert at something. Be the expert at, so obviously seller buy down is impactful because I can hit multifaceted. So be the king or queen of the seller buy down in your community. Own it, because that's going to protect you from the Amazons of the world. And then how do you get online and compete with them? I think that's the next thing. And that's kind of why I did it myself. How do I take my knowledge from all the years and get it into space? So that's what you need to think about. Be great at something and get it out online.
I have one last thought before I share my last thought in action for everybody. If you got value, give this a like in our Facebook group. If you have a question or a takeaway, put a comment down below. It's the best way to say, thank you, Scott. I got value. And then my last thought, and I said it early on, I just want to make sure you guys connected. You need to be an advisor, absolute black belt at delivering mortgage advice. And that's one thing I like about the seller buy down is you just become a better advisor. It's like a black belt. I would go on to say, if you can't talk about in an appropriate way, explain in a super clear and compelling way a seller buy down, you're not a mortgage coach black belt. So I think it is an important strategy to be a black belt at Mortgage Coach. And then the pillars, I always say it, your past customers, they need to be your number one priority. And let's face it, if you live on the referrals of realtors, they need to be your number 2 priority. But your past clients are still more important. But you know what? I love this channel. I love the idea of being a seller buy down expert. And then I also love the wealth team. I love that call I did with Wally earlier in the year where, he is not only killing it with his past customers, he's focused on CPAs and financial planners. I'm going to send this call to Wally because I think, getting to black belt status at seller buy down is great. Scott, I hope you're hugely successful growing your digital seller buy down websites.
Yep.
And rock it out, brother. You killed it.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks all.
Hey, people want your slides. Are we going to put a link to those? How do we get your slides?
Yeah, well, I mean, here's two answers. Number one, I'm going to post some stuff on the site here next. So I'll hang up just a second. Let me take care of a few house cleaning things. I'm going to go to the community and post it. Number two, in the seller buy down, all of these assets are in there. So I have realtor presentations, listing presentations. I have this present. I'm going to put this presentation in a PDF format in there for people.
So here's the thing, guys. He'll upload this PowerPoint in our group, free gift from Scott, but there's more presentations and there's an online website. And I would just say at your next presentation, how badass would it be if you didn't even use slides? You use your website and you use the total cost analysis, and you were either connecting human to human, no slides, and then when it's time, you pulled up your seller buy down website, you pulled up your slides, you killed it. Scott Nicholson, this was an epic call, brother. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Jacob, thanks for jumping in and out of the call.